On War by Karl von Clausewitz. Book 1. On the Nature of War. In this book, I examine the true nature of war as an act of force intended to compel our adversary to do our will. War is never an isolated phenomenon, but always a continuation of political intercourse carried on with other means. I distinguish between the absolute war of pure theory and the real war shaped by friction, uncertainty, and the interplay of passion, chance, and reason. These three elements form a remarkable trinity that every commander must understand. The fog of war obscures all things, and the countless minor difficulties I call friction make even the simplest operation difficult in practice. He who grasps that war is a serious instrument of policy, never to be undertaken lightly or separated from its political object, has taken the first step toward mastery. Book 2. On the Theory of War. Here I address the proper limits and uses of theory in the conduct of war. Theory cannot furnish fixed rules or positive prescriptions, for war is too complex and variable. Instead, I propose that theory should educate the mind, sharpen judgment, and accustom the commander to think clearly amid uncertainty. It must analyze experience, classify phenomena, and trace the connections between means and ends without claiming to dictate action on the battlefield. The theorist who forgets that war is an art as well as a science will mislead the student. My purpose is not to teach how to win every battle, but to cultivate the habit of critical reflection, so that, when the moment of decision arrives, the commander acts with insight rather than rote formula. Book 3. On Strategy in General. In this book, I treat strategy as the use of engagements for the object of the war. Strategy governs the plan of the whole campaign and the direction of every single operation. I examine the fundamental principles of time, space, and force, showing how superiority at the decisive point is more important than overall numbers. Moral forces, boldness, perseverance, and the unexpected weigh as heavily as material strength. The strategist must constantly weigh the relation between means and ends, never losing sight of the political object that alone justifies the sacrifice. Strategy is not a system of rigid rules, but an art of adapting to ever-changing circumstances while keeping the ultimate purpose clearly in view. Book 4. The Combat. This book is devoted to the combat itself, the bloody heart of war. I analyze the engagement in all its forms, from the single combat of small bodies to the great pitched battle. Every combat has two aims: the destruction of the enemy's forces and the preservation of our own. I show that the decision is reached through the shock of moral and physical forces, and that the moment of crisis is brief. The commander must understand the dynamics of attack and defense within the fight, the effects of surprise, and the inevitable disorder that follows success or failure. Combat is the crucible in which all strategic plans are tested. He who masters its nature will not be surprised when the fighting begins. Book 5. Military Forces. Here I consider the organization, equipment, and maintenance of armies. I discuss the composition of forces, the relation between infantry, cavalry, and artillery, and the importance of reserves and lines of communication. Numbers alone do not decide. The quality of troops, their training, their spirit, and their supply matter far more. I examine how the size of armies has grown in modern times, and why this growth both increases power and multiplies friction. The wise commander arranges his forces so that they remain flexible and can concentrate rapidly at the decisive point. Without proper organization and sustainment, even the boldest strategy collapses under its own weight. Book 6. Defense. In this book, I treat defense as the stronger form of war, though it has a negative object. The defensive waits for the enemy to move and then strikes with all the advantages of position, preparation, and interior lines. I show that fortresses, terrain, and popular support multiply defensive strength. Yet, the defender must never forget that defense is only a means to prepare a decisive counterstroke. The transition from defense to attack is the most delicate moment in war. He who understands that the defensive is not passivity but a posture of calculated strength will endure the enemy's first blow and then seize the initiative with overwhelming force. Book 7. The Attack. Here, I examine the attack in its various forms and degrees. The attack has a positive object and therefore carries the greater moral force, yet it weakens with every step forward as lines of communication lengthen and forces disperse. I analyze the different stages of the offensive, the role of reserves, and the necessity of concentrating superior strength at the decisive point. The attacker must press his advantage relentlessly, yet know when to halt before overextension invites ruin. Boldness and calculation must go hand in hand. The true art of attack lies not in blind advance, but in the skillful combination of force, speed, and timing that brings the enemy to collapse. Book 8. War Plans. In this final book, I draw the whole together into the plan of the war itself. The plan must flow directly from the political object and the means available. I distinguish between wars of limited aim and wars in which the complete overthrow of the enemy is the goal. Every plan must account for the trinity of forces, the friction of reality, and the uncertainty that attends all great undertakings. The commander who frames his plan with clear insight into the nature of war, who adapts it to changing circumstances without losing sight of the political end, and who maintains moral ascendancy over his adversary, has fulfilled the highest task of military leadership.